Wow. Shalom Aleichem. Peischin b'feitvach zanya, which means we start by thanking the hosts, and I'd like to start by thanking the Rabbi Shalom. It's been a tiring week, it's been a hectic week, it's been an overwhelming week, it's been an exciting week, it's been a boring week, it's been a happy week, it's been a frustrating week, and to be in a place like this, Mamash, I'm telling you, to stand here is one of those humbling things to experience. Together with that, I'd like to make a very, very warm thanks to Rabbi Yaakov, Odzer, his daughters, who I taught. I'm seeing familiar faces the more I look around. I'll just stop looking around and just, really what Rabbi Yaakov has done here, number one, what he does to maintain a shul like this, and they've just spent a huge amount of effort and a lot of money, but Baruch Hashem, it was done with help of insurance due to a hurricane, but to fix the outer dome of this shul, and they're about to invest in now fixing the interior. Due to that hurricane, there was internal and external damage. But look at this. This is what a shul should look like. Not much when I was discussing, and then I got an email, would you like to give a share in Young Israel, Bethel? I was like, I'm not so sure. What is it? I've never heard of this shul before. And then I put it into Rabbi Google, and you just see pictures. And if this is what Batei Knesses look like, I think we'd all love davening. I think we would all love davening. Just look at this. It's also a bit of an insight, as I was discussing with Rabbi Yaakov, as he was taking me on a mini tour around the Beis Medrash and the side alleyways, etc., and going up to the Ezras Nashim. It's tempting to start by singing, because this is a shul where some of the world's most famous chazanim have sung. This is a shul where it is famous for not only tefillah, but the art of tefillah and the art of avodah of tefillah. It's also a shul where many, many great rabbanim have spoken, which is what makes this truly humbling. In 1926, the Heilige Rabbi Shapiro came to Borough Park collecting for the Yeshiva of Chachmei Lublin, and he spoke in this shul. It was actually just before Hanukkah. It was just before Hanukkah. I was asking Rabbi Yaakov if we have any notes of what he actually discussed. But he actually went on a journey which started very negatively in collecting for the yeshiva, and actually the newspapers in Borough Park announced the Heilige Rabbi Shapiro, founder of Daf Yomi and the builder of one of the greatest diamonds in the crown jewels of Poland Jewry, which is Yeshiva's Chachmei Lublin. And they announced him as a politician. He was a member of parliament. He was a member of what actually is called in Polish as the Sejm of Poland, which is the Parliament of Poland. And he came here and he was, why didn't you announce that someone who's founding a yeshiva is coming? And it took a while. Eventually, Baruch Hashem, he did go back to Lublin with sizable donations. But to stand in a place like this, and it's not just the footsteps of Rameh, it's the footsteps of Torah, Tefillah, Kedusha, in the heart of one of the most important heartbeats of Klal Yisrael, outside Eretz Yisrael, is truly a zechus. A huge thank you to your family. I understood your mother somewhere in the audience, and the Rebbetzin, I think, of the Kehillah is somewhere in the audience. Is that right? That's what I was told, perhaps. If not, a tremendous, tremendous shkach to all of you, and you should only host Torah and Avodah. I will tell you in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, outside there's a piece of paper. There's two piles of paper. One, if anyone wants to know about future events which are taking place here, Rabbi Yaakov and family are more than happy to put you on the mailing list, and I think it's a zechus to have Torah in the center of Yiddishkeit in America. There's also papers outside, and I'll end my introduction with this. I was coming to America on behalf of Midrashat Tehillah. We see some shout-outs, as they say, but we're in a Beis Medrash, I remind you. And Midrashat Tehillah is a seminary which I'm going to spend literally 90 seconds about Midrashat Tehillah. If anyone wants booklets and flyers and wants to understand it better, you want to talk to me personally about it, Gesundheit. Like every seminary, and I've been recruiting in Florida, in Silver Spring, in Baltimore, in Philadelphia, in Lakewood, in Muncie, and tomorrow Mitzvah Shem in Borough Park. Like any seminary, I think one of the challenges of recruiting is, how do you know what's MS? How do you know what's MS? And how do you know where you're going to get for you the best experience of Torah's MS? So just for 60 seconds, Madrasha Taylor is a seminary which I truly feel, especially over the years, it's being fine-tuned more and more like every seminary, but specifically the last few years, which is based on Torah, it's founded on Torah. It's trying to motivate the Talmidos, like the ones I see here, that Torah should be the center of your lives and the compass which directs your life. Yet it's not within what I would call the uniform experience of Sarah Schneer's education. It's dafka without a uniform, it's dafka with smartphones, and it's a chinuch within that framework of becoming your best Torah self, but not within, so to speak, the externals. It's more of an inside-out sort of seminary, as opposed to an outside-in. I'm more than happy to take questions, and I'm sure some of our Talmidos and remarkable Talmidos are more than happy to talk to anyone who has questions regarding Madrasha Taylor, but there's also booklets and there's also a page outside. If you want to know more information, please fill it in and we'll get back to you b'siyata d'shmaya. Standing in a place, Beis El, Beis Kel, I'd like to share with you an idea which I've been sharing in various shurim around America, well, East Coast, and it's regarding Shabbos Kodesh. And if you noticed on the flyer or the advert, whatever you call it, Menucha v'simcha oir laYehudim. And I think when especially Rabbi comes back to re-meet Talmidos, you've got to be very, very careful what to talk about. If I talk about technology, it's going to be relevant to some people, less to others. It could be an overload of that subject. I don't know. Possibly. If I talk about tznius, it's a very delicate topic. How do you discuss that in such a setting? If you talk about shidduchim, it also could be, okay, let's say something which creates less of an anxiety, but something which perhaps could mamash enhance our lives in an easier way. Not only in an easier way, but I think in a profound way. Shabbos Kodesh. Shabbos Kodesh. Let's try for the next 45 minutes just to be present. Forget the world, forget your phones, forget things that you have to do tomorrow, or perhaps even stay up tonight to do, like myself and others. And let's just be here. The beauty of a shul, the beauty of a bias, is a place that you should be focused within and not without. If we mention the word technology, one of the big nisyonos in technology is that where's the boundary of my house and the world? And the walls have been literally almost defeated, like the time of the Churban, through that world of technology which penetrates walls, even basement apartments. But that's what a Beis HaKnesses is going to be. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch writes that a Beis HaKnesses is a place that when you come inside, leave everything out and come inside. You're about to be hugged by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're about to be hugged by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like what I say, lahavdil, a bad example because I hope it's not relevant to anyone here, but there's become a trend of something called taking pictures of oneself. I don't even want to use the terminology, but the terminology I don't want to use is that word called selfies. And there's become a trend, even in a yichud room. If you can't remember the most precious experiences in your life, then they're not yet precious experiences. If you need a picture to remind you of the most precious experiences, then there's something wrong with the experience. We can elaborate. I don't want to elaborate. But in a shul, yeah, you can take a picture in a shul. But when you come to daven, you take 3 steps back, you leave the world behind you. And then you take 3 steps forward. As my grandfather, Rabbi Jacobowitz, that he used to say that the 3 steps forward is Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Let's walk in their footsteps. Let's leave distraction, or what I call distraction. There was a Yid who came to the Chazon Ish, the Heilige Chazon Ish, and he said to the Chazon Ish, I'm about to leave Eretz Yisrael after Yom Tov, and I'm going to return to America. What should I tell the Yidden in America in your name? Said the Heilige Chazon Ish in Bnei Brak, he said, tell the Yidden, be like Noach. It was Sukkot, 2 weeks before Parshas Noach. He said, be like Noach. And he continued like Noach, Tamim haya b'deireisav. Be straightforward with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't be complicated. I know people use this terminology, a pasha yid. It's not pasha to be a pasha yid. It's not easy to be a straightforward person. But Tamim haya, and then he elaborated. He said, what does it mean to be Tamim? One word, emunah. Emunah. And I'm here, again, coming from Eretz Yisrael. Let's talk about emunah. And let's talk about bitachon. And we'll put these two together and intertwine it with Shabbos Kodesh. And I think by the end we'll try to invite all of us to a small Kabbalah which could be life-shifting. And it could be Shabbos elevating. You might ask the question, it's an appropriate question. In front of a group like this, you don't need to talk about Shabbos. Oh yeah, for Shabbos? We all need fine-tuning, says the Chofetz Chaim. Says the Chofetz Chaim, it's impossible to truly keep Shabbos if you haven't truly learned the halachas of Shabbos. If you'd only realize how complicated Shabbos could be from a halachic perspective. But nevertheless, we're Baruch Hashem, the proud Shomrei Shabbos of the world. Why am I talking to you about Shabbos? So another story, another Ma'aseh Shahaya. Reb Shalom Shvadron, one of the last Magidim in Klal Yisrael. Reb Shalom Shvadron once said over a shir in Borough Park, when he once came to Borough Park, and the shir was on the topic of Torah and Ahavas Torah, specifically invited with the B'nai Torah of Borough Park in this area. And he started the shir with this question: why am I talking to the B'nai Torah about Torah? You're not the ones who need to hear it, it's the people outside who need to hear it. Why am I talking to people who keep Shabbos about Shabbos? Said Reb Shalom Shvadron, wonderful. He said, when I was in the Petach Tikva yeshiva, there was a Yid called Rabbi He then moved from Vilna and he came to the Petach Tikva yeshiva, and that's where I learned from him. And what he said was gewaldig. He said that there was a story in Vilna when a Yid came to Vilna, Choshev Yid, and he gave a drasha to the Vilna yeshiva about keeping Shabbos. As everyone was walking out, someone came up to Rabbi Shinza from Shvadron's Rabbi, and they said, why was he talking to us about Shabbos? Does he not know who we are? We are the people who you need to talk to about Shabbos. To which Rabbi Shinza said back to the boys, let me think about it. A few moments later he said, I think I understand. He said, if there's a terrible fire raging in a building, and the fire department show up, and they try to save the fire, and eventually they try to save the building, and eventually they realize, en malasat, it's literally a house on fire. What do they do next? The next strategy is, we can't save the house, but let's make sure it doesn't spread. So they're going to spray the houses around the house which is on fire, so that the fire doesn't spread. Gewaldig. Said Rabbi Shinza, that's what Yiddishkeit has to be. When there's a time in the world where we see everyone is getting weaker in an area, we need to talk to those people who are still strong to make sure their fire doesn't get extinguished. And he said, therefore, the Yid in Vilna spoke about Shabbos. Said Reb Shalom Shvadron here in Borough Park, I don't know which shul. Therefore, I'm talking to you about Torah. It's not because I'm worried about your Torah, but I'm worried about your Torah being affected, or infected, or defected, or deflected. And we have to hold on tight, as the Shomrei Shabbos, to Avos HaShabbos and Avos HaMitzvos. And if we don't, maybe the fire which is raging outside our walls, chas v'shalom, could burn us down too. So let's talk about Shabbos Kodesh. For those who I've taught, which is many here, and it's mamash. The one thing I feel bad when I give a shir like this is I wish your principals were just standing here. I wish my wife. You can't hear me? Is that better? Okay, shkar. Tell me if it's not good enough, and I'll have to not walk around as well. But that's okay? Shkar. This shul was, by the way, designed for singing. And it's a different type of acoustic for singing and speaking, but I appreciate you keep telling me if you can't hear. I feel bad for my wife. Ein bias in Menasara. I should see some of you here who, when Menasara, should be thrilled with, Zes Chorech. This is your schar. This is the Paris of a number of years later, coming back for a share. What a nachas roch. What a nachas roch. For those of you who I've taught, you'll know that up until a certain age, the primary Rabbi in my life was Uncle Moshe. And Uncle Moshe taught us. He taught us that Shabbos is a day of rest. Shabbos, I love you best. And Shabbos is what we call today a day of rest. And that's a terrible mistake. I'm not saying the song's wrong, chas v'shalom. I don't argue with my rabbis, but nevertheless, Shabbos isn't just a day of rest. Says Rav Hirsch, that's not the idea of Shabbos. What is the aside of Shabbos? Rav Hirsch writes his own idea what the definition of Shabbos is. We'll come back to that, maybe if we have time. Rav Hirsch writes, Shabbos is a day that I stop creating to remind myself who is the creator in the 6 days of the week. I'm working hard, I think I'm filling my bank account. On Shabbos I stop and I say, I'm just doing the footwork. That's Rav Hirsch's mahalach about Shabbos Kodesh. But I want to try and take it for all of us to a deeper level. One of the Shabbos songs that we sing is Menucha v'simcha or LaYehudim. And you notice in the words of that song, which I hope we're all familiar with, Menucha, rest, Simcha, joy, or light, La Yehudim for the Jew, for the Yid. And there's an amazing theory which has been developing as I've been preparing this share, that there's something unique in the Hebrew calendar year. Not only is it Hebrew dates, which means tomorrow night, for example, is Rosh Chodesh Kislev, but actually the Hebrew calendar year is unique for the Yid. Shabbos, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos, even Chanukah and Purim. And I'll tell you what I mean. Shabbos Kodesh, for example, let's start with Shabbos. The halacha is a goy sheshavas chayav misa. A guy who keeps Shabbos is chayav misa. The halacha of Shabbos is based on V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos. Words which ring out here every Friday night. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos. It's unique for the Yid. In fact, recently we had a girl in the Neve campus who came to eat with us who was a Geiris, who was a convert, and she said to us the hardest thing in her process of becoming a Yid was, what was the hardest thing? Not keeping Shabbos. Because there's a halacha that a lady or a man who's becoming a ger or geiras isn't allowed to keep Shabbos. And they have to do a melacha not d'Rabbanan, but d'Oraisa. And she said that broke my heart every time, but I knew my Rav told me that's what I'm going to be doing. That's the right thing to do. And if it's the right thing to do, it becomes a mitzvah. But it wasn't easy, especially the week before. Next week, in a few days' time, I've got an appointment to suddenly become a bas Sarah. And I have to break Shabbos. But a goysha Shabbos chayav misa. Let's keep moving. Sukkos. The halacha is kol ha'ezrach b'Yisrael yeshvu b'sukkos. Every Yid is welcome into the Hag of Hashem, which are the walls of the Sukkah. Pesach, same thing. By Pesach we see a halacha that a guy who eats from a korban Pesach is chayav kares. Kol orel lo yochal boy. It's actually misa, not kares, but kol orel, a guy is not allowed to eat from a korban Pesach. And at the same time, we also have on Seder night, kol dichvin yeseh v'yechal, which means everyone's welcome, if you're Jewish, to the Seder table. Chacham, Tom, Eshenia Delishal, and of course the Rasha. I once heard, I think from the Satmar Rebbe, I'm not sure, I think it was from the Satmar Rebbe. Why do we invite Chacham, Rasha, Tom, Eshenia Delishal? Maybe you don't have a child like that. At least we hope we don't. And he said, we're not inviting the child, we're inviting ourselves. Each of us, at times, have parts which are Chacham, parts which are Rasha, parts which are Tam, parts which are Eshenia Delishal, but we're all welcome to the Seder table, because you're a Yid. Same as with Shavuos. Asher bochar banu mikol ha'am, or asher bochar banu mikol ha'amim. Shavuos, we got the Torah. That was exclusive for a Yid. And I think you find the same thing with Chanukah. The Neirus Chanukah represent the heartbeat of a Yid, or the Pintele Yid, as we call it. And the same applies as well, of course, to Purim. La Yehudim, Haisa Eirav Simcha. Unbelievable. Throughout the calendar. Mamash. And tomorrow we're going to say, Roshei Chodshechem la'amcha nasata. Friday. Zman kapar l'chol taldeisam. It's a time for you. It's not a time for anyone else. It's not chayav misa if a guy keeps Rosh Chodesh. I don't know what it means to keep Rosh Chodesh today, but if he says Hallel, he can say Psalms, he can even say hymns. But it's only for a Yid. What's the aside of Shabbos Kodesh being only for a Yid? I want to share with you something quite deep, and I know it's a Wednesday night and it's been a long week, it's been a very long week. But listen to the words of a Zayar based on the Sfas Emes, and I'm going to intertwine what I'm saying with Ravash. But it's based on those Sfarim. The Sfas Emes writes, quoting a Zayar, by the way, in the back corner, can you hear me? Yeah? Gewaldig. The Zayar writes that Noach was a bechina, which means a touch of Shabbos. Noach was a touch of Shabbos. Why? Because the Pasuk says, Vayonach vayom hashvi. That's the Zayar. Divrei Kabbalah. It's a very deep idea. But, shalom. But Vayonach vayom hashvi is Noach. What does this Zayar mean? The Heilige Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. What does he mean? That Noach is the beginner of Shabbos, Kodesh. It's a nice play on words. Vayonach, Noach. Listen to a Meredith of art. By Noach, the Pasuk tells us three characteristics. Noach was an Ish Tzaddik. Noach was a Tomim Hoya. which means simple in his derech of Avodas Hashem, uncomplicated and uncompromising. And just, if the screen has stopped, I'm not sure what's happened. But Noach ish tzadik, Tomim hoya b'deireisav, and es ha'elikim is halich Noach. Those are the three characteristics of Noach. He was a tzaddik, he was Tomim, and he walked in the way of Hashem. Listen to this. Oy, gewaldig, geschmacke Svasemes. What a Svasemes. Says the Svasemes, Noach had all three elements, and then he had three children. And each of his children took one branch of those three branches of what was their father. If an apple doesn't fall from a tree, the branch is attached to the tree. The branch is attached to the tree. And Baruch Hashem, for those who are parents in the room, and Amitzvah Hashem, those who are going to be parents in the room, you'll see with your own children, you can notice their attributes and their talents going back to yourself and Amitzvah Hashem, your husbands. But nevertheless, your children will all be unique in their own way. It's not chanech le'na'archem al pi darkecha or darkeich. It's chanech le'na'ar. Each child has their uniqueness, but they're rooted in the tree. There's a beautiful Ramban about that. Sheirish periresh velana, that from good parents, children will be good. And when the child's not good, it's not because the child's not good. The child's not doing good. But Noach was all three, and he had three children. What does it mean to be an ish tzaddik? What does it mean to be a tomim? And what does it mean to be es ha'elikim is halich Noach? Well, let's translate this in Shem Cham and Yafes. Shem Cham and Yafes. What's a cham? What's a cham? And I'm going to be as sensitive as I can, although as honest and straight as I can. I know we're in the land of sensitivity with speech, and I'm going to be as thoroughly correct as I can, even if it's not always as politically correct. But I want you to hear the aside of the Svasemes. What is cham? What defines the African culture? What defines the African culture? It's a culture, says the Svasemes, and Rav elaborates, very similar. It's a culture of passion. It's a culture of excitement. It's a culture of a dance. I was driving through Hollywood in Florida, mamash, the car was almost moving to the rhythm of... I get out of the car and I try to buy something, and they talk to me as if I'm crazy in a language which speaks my mother tongue, which is English. And they're like, no, here we don't speak it. And like, if you don't speak Spanish, you can almost not even buy a bottle of water. And I was like, the amount of Africans and Spanish and the variety which gather there. But when you notice the culture of what in English is called the black culture, it's a culture where their music fits to the rhythm of the whole body's involved in that enthusiasm of dance. In English it's called rap. It's a style of music, it's a chachma. I don't think it was sung on the steps of the Beis Hamikdash, but it's definitely a chachma of music, and it's an expression of language, of the culture of enthusiasm, passion, excitement. Let's use one English word, desire. Desire, from the Hebrew word cham, which means warm with excitement. It's a very healthy thing, it's a very important thing. When it's used right, it's one of the most important drives for survival. Whether it's in the world of eating, whether it's in the world of looking after oneself, v'chulei. That's the world of cham. In its healthy sense, the world of desires. Cham took it negatively. The world of Yefes, what's the world of Yefes? The world of Yefes is the world of beauty. Yofi. It's the world of art. It's the world of classical music. It's the world of culture. It's the world of perhaps creation, like we see here. This is the world of Yofi. Yerushalayim is known as Ir Yofi. Ye'ein Yofi ki yafya shal Yerushalayim. It's beauty. What is beauty? What is beauty? When things fit together, and together create something even nicer. You take a variety of colors in a paint box, and you put them systematically and with cheshbon onto a canvas, and you create a beautiful piece of art. That's Yofi. You can do it with anything in the world of creation. Take music notes and orchestrate them properly with a composition. You get magical classical music. That's the world of Yofi. In other words, there's confusion, I make order, and I create something which looks pleasing. That's what Yofi is. It's the same, by the way, in the world of becoming presentable. Let's imagine for Shabbos Kodesh, and I've got 3 teenage girls in the world of makeup. What's the world of makeup? It's the art of taking things and enhancing something which already exists and bringing out its greatest shine. In the depth of it, that's the brilliance of Yofi. When it's used right, when it's used wrong, it's Hevel HaYofi. When it's used wrong, it's Hevel HaYofi. That's the world of Chom and the world of Yefes. To put it into what we were saying before we get to shame. The world of Chom is the world of Tamim. Tamim Hayabadiraisav. Walk around simply. You see something, you want to enjoy it, enjoy it. That's the world of Chom. Could be used well. The world of Yefes is Ish Tzadik. What's a Tzadik? There's a court case going on, and there's an argument between 2 individuals, and we don't know how to make sense of this noise and racket and chaos which is going on. You go to the court system, a healthy court system. What's their goal? Tzedek. Tzedek, says the Sfas Emes, is the result of confusion which you make sense out of. That's Yofi. Again, there's a contradiction or a contrast, and you create beauty through it. You create clarity. In Hebrew, the court system is called a base or bet, mishpat. What does mishpat mean? So you'll say to judge. In English, the Hebrew word mishpat means 2 things. It means a court system, and it also means a sentence. An English sentence, when you're writing a book, it actually rings true to say that that's associated with a court system. Because a court system gives a sentence. Why is it called a sentence? Because there's chaos in a situation, and you're going to summarize it in a few paragraphs and come to a simple conclusion of a very complicated situation. That's a sentence. When you've got something you want to share with one another, and you write a mishpat, which means I write a sentence, I'm making in my head conclusions of something, and I'm bringing it down to you as simply and as briefly as I can. That's Yofi. That is beauty. It's using the mind in order to create something which is beautiful. In fact, the word which I would use for Yefes is imagination. It's imagination. It's being able to dance in your mind or in your brain or on a piece of paper with a variety of ideas, put them down clearly. That's a mishpat. That's tzedek. Because a tzedek looks for tzedek. There's things I don't understand in the world. I'm looking for Hashem's justice. I'm looking to see, tzedek hu Hashem ki piu marisi. Oyer zaru ala tzedek ul yishre leiv simcha. The result of tzedek is simcha. The result of tzedek is simcha. Everything makes sense, beautiful. You hear a beautiful piece of classical music, gewaldig. Wow, it's magical, it's hair-raising. What is shame? What is shame? The third son, we haven't got to him. What is shame? Shame is the person who bridges the gap between Chom and Yefes, and he takes the best of both. Shame is the one who doesn't just have desires, he doesn't just have imagination. He channels both of them intellectually, and that's what shame is, that's what a name is. It's the essence of something, and it takes the best out of both. It takes the best out of Chom, the best out of Yefes, and that is Eso Elikim Yisalichnech. He took the bits of tzaddik, he took the bits of tamim, and then he just walked in the way of Hashem. And that's the goal of a Yid. Let's take this a little bit further. On Shabbos we say, Elikeinu v'elikei aviseinu. Ritzei, please, be happy with menuchaseinu. Ritzei v'menuchaseinu. And then the next words are kadashenu b'mitzveisecha. If Noach represents Shabbos, because the Yesod of Noach we'll come to in a minute, is Vayonach b'yom ha'shavi, why don't we move from there into Kedusha? Kadashenu b'mitzveisecha. Oy, Rabbi Yisai, listen to this vart. What a vart. Once you reach tzedek, the result of that is happiness, because the result of that is calmness. I'm comfortable knowing that Hashem is running the world. The result of that is menucha. One of the hardest things for us is to let go and just be. For those who have taken to Poland before, you might remember that letter B as you walk into Auschwitz, Arbeit macht frei. And the letter B, which is upside down from Jean Ivach, his number in Auschwitz, his tattoo was 1010. And Jean used to say, that's our resistance. He put the B upside down. And for those who are with me in Poland, I talk about this idea of you don't have to process, I'll talk your language, you don't have to process Auschwitz as you're walking through it, you can process it afterwards. When you're in Auschwitz, just be. When you're in Shul, just be. When you're on Shabbos, just be. That's the result of tzaddik. My mind's chaotic, I can't make sense of everything. Come to a place where you can just, it's okay. I'm in the hands of Hashem. Ritzev and Menucha Seinu. That was Noach. Avraham Avinu, 10 generations later, he took this upper level. He graduated the world of tzaddik, and he became a chassid. A chassid in its true sense. What's a chassid in its true sense? What's a chassid? Inside out. A chassid is similar to a tzaddik. Like a tzaddik is to tzedek, a chassid is to chesed. Says the Slonim Rabbi. Like a tzaddik is to tzedek, a chassid is to chesed. What's a chassid? A chassid is someone who doesn't even have a court case in his head. He's lifnim b'shura sadin. He goes beyond that din of judgment of tzaddik. He doesn't even have questions that need answering to bring him to justice. He just feels it's okay. I don't die from a question mark, as Rav Shach used to say in Ponovich. Mishtap nish v'nakasha. That's what Rav Shach used to say. That's the world of Kedusha. I don't know if you remember this, I hope you do. But for those who weren't there, it's worth hearing. And if not, Chazara. My grandfather, as I mentioned, I was actually asking Rabbi Yaakov if he ever spoke in this shul. I know he came as the chief rabbi of England to give shiurim in Borough Park and in Brooklyn and Flatbush and around America. I don't know if he ever spoke in this shul. I would assume if the chief rabbi comes from a foreign country to speak, this is where they're going to speak. Am I right with that assumption? Could be? I would assume this is the shul where the great Rabbanim of history have spoken in the last 100 years. But my grandfather used to say the difference between someone who's a materialistic person and someone who's a spiritual person. Materialistic is the ground, spiritual is the soul. The difference between being the soil or the soul is your focus on I or is your focus on you. Soil is S-O-I-L, soul is S-O-U-L. The difference is, what's your focus? Is your focus on I or is your focus on you? And that's Kedusha. That's Kedusha. When a mitzvah Hashem you get married, or those who are married, you heard those words. Hareat mekudeshas. What is Kedusha? I'm letting go of myself and committing to you. That's what Kedusha is. I'm letting go of myself and I'm committing to you, Hashem. Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakos. When we wash our hands, we're saying, I'm elevating my hands. They're not mine. I'm elevating them to you. The highest level of that is dying al Kiddush Hashem. Not only my decisions, but even my life I'm willing to give up for you. That's Avraham Avinu. In the 10th Nisayan, when it came to the Akedas Yitzchak, he was willing to have this commitment, and he knew his son would follow. They were even willing to give up the most precious things in the name of Hashem. That can only happen through Menucha. Through Tzaddik you can get to Chassid. I want to share with you a great Sfas Emes, a wonderful Rabbi Yehuda Ariaduna, and a smashing Rabbi Melech Biderman. Gewaldig. The Sfas Emes writes in Parshas Lech Lecha that the gematria of the word Lech Lecha is 100. 30 plus 20 plus 30 plus 20 is 100. Says the Sfas Emes, the first words ever said to a Yid were Lech Lecha, walk. If you're keeping halacha and it's stressful, you're not keeping halacha. I'm not talking about building a sukkah or doing Pesach cleaning. I'm not talking about things which intrinsically create tension and sweat. But generally, halacha is meant to be halicha. Halacha is meant to be halicha. And if it's not, go back to your Rav. If it's not, go back to your Rebbetzin. Because halacha is meant to be gishmak. It's meant to be zis. It's meant to be sweet. How do you do that? How do you do that? By just letting go and being with Hashem. Menucha. How do you do that? 100 times a day we get an opportunity to say a bracha. Leich lecha. 100 times a day. Just be. Just be. One more step. One more step. It's one step at a time. That's the Sfas Emes. Rabbi Yehuda Ariaduna said a wonderful gematria. I think it's his own, I don't know, might be from a sefer. A Yid who's going through challenges, and we all go through challenges, that's why we're here. If you've got no challenges, I'll tell you what the Chofetz Chaim once said. The Chofetz Chaim once called all the Yidden in Radin into a shul, men, women and children, in the middle of the night. What does the Chofetz Chaim want in the middle of the night? And he went up to the Aron Kodesh. He opened the Aron Kodesh and he said, Rabbi, if there's anyone here who thinks they've got no challenges in life, put your head into the Aron Kodesh and cry because you're missing something. We all have challenges. The greatest challenge of all is that you don't even realize you've got challenges. We all have challenges. But the world of Lech Lecha, walk in the way of Hashem. When a person has challenges about things which happened in the past, what might be the Hebrew question? It's 3 letters. What's the one question you might say about things in the past? Lama. Why? Why? Whereas I once heard from a Yid after the Holocaust, he used to say, it's not lama, but lama. It's not why, but for what? Okay, but a Yid would say lama, why? What about my worries for the future? 2 words, what would I say in Hebrew? Ma'iyah. Ma'iyah. Oy, ma'iyah. You've probably heard that phrase before, and if you haven't, go back to Israel a bit. It's time for a visit. But lama and ma'iyah are the two questions of a person who's not finding life smooth enough. Lama, why did that happen? Ma'iyah, what's going to be? You listen to this Rabbi Yoda Aryadana. Brilliant. Worth waking up for this, Rabbis. Worth waking up for this warrant. Lama is Gematria 75. It's 30 plus 40 plus 5. Ma is Gematria 45. Memhe. Yihya is Gematria 30, which means Lama is Gematria 75, and my Yihya is Gematria 75. What's the antidote? Bitochen, which is also Gematria 75. Bitochen comes in between my Lamas and my Yihyas and tells me, let go, just be. Just be for Bitochen. Just be with Hashem and everything's going to be okay. Don't worry about the past. Don't be nervous about the future. The Rabbi Shalom's anyway pulling the strings. Anyway pulling the strings. It's like imagine you're standing here as a chazan and all you're doing is looking up where I presume in the past the choir used to stand. You're going to lose focus of the melody. You can't just focus on the harmonies. Leave the Rabbi Shalom to pull the strings. Just let him pull them. Just let him pull them. I said this in Sam a few weeks ago. If only Trump would realize that there's actually strings attached to his hands, we might see more Anova in America. Again, I didn't mean that as Musa, and I didn't mean that as politics. I'm not a politician, not at the best of times, definitely not at the worst of times. But the aside is, Lama Ma'yihya B'tochen. And now listen to this smashing Ramelech Biederman. He says Ramelech Biederman, why is it that many Yidden in Klal Yisrael have fish on Friday night? Why fish on Friday night? There's a concept known as us thinking that we're in control. And we think, it's my work week which made me financially stable. And we think it's all because of us. In Hebrew it's called Keichi Va'itzem Yadi. It was the power of my hands which succeeded. Said Ramelech Biederman, you know why we have fish on Friday night? Fish don't have hands. Remind yourself, be like a fish. A fish can never say Keichi Va'itzem Yadi because it doesn't have them. It's a great remez. It's a great remez. It's a Chassidish Varant. And it's the emes of B'tochen. Let go. It's not me. It's not you. It's not me. It's not you. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom in our lives. That's what Shabbos is about. That's what Shabbos is about. I want to share with you a story which I mentioned in Shir, definitely in the last year. I don't know if I said this years before, but hear this story. It's a story where halfway through you might think I'll finish the story and you'll give me a very polite smile and even a laugh or wow. But you'll be thinking to yourself, I'm smiling just to make Rabbi Turner happy. It doesn't seem to be socially healthy, the story I'm about to share with you, on, off, whatever direction. But listen to this Maisa. There was a Bacha in a Hasidshi yeshiva who was in Eretz Yisrael learning. Baruch Hashem, he got engaged, and suddenly the fear and anxiety of how am I going to support a family kicked in. And he was very, very worried. And he realized he's got problems with his bitachon. What did he do? He went to his Rabbi and he says, Rabbi, I don't know what to do, I'm so nervous. I'm going to get married, how am I going to... And he was flapping about supporting a family. His Rabbi said, please, next time you have an assignment, just let go and let Hashem and see what happens. Just once, trust me on this. Take that leap. Take that leap of trust. Take that leap of trust. He said, I'll try. A few days later, a friend of his comes up to him, and his friend said, it's your chasna soon. Do you want to go with me to Tzvas for Shabbos? Let's go to Tzvas for Shabbos. Shimon, let's go to Tzvas for Shabbos. You remember the story? So he says, let's go to Tzvas. they go together to Tzvas. He says, I'm really sorry, I can't afford it. I can't ask my parents for money, they're making my chasna soon. He said, don't worry, I'll lay out and I'll give it back to you. And you'll give it back to me when you're ready. They go to Tzvas, they have a gohaibana, a very elevated Shabbos. And on the way back, they bring out the receipts and they start making a cheshbon. And he gives them an IOU and he signed it. And Mitzvah Hashem, I'll pay you. He says, no pressure, whenever you want. In installments and whatever, it's all good. And it came out to 388 shekel and 60 agurot. That was the number. He wrote it down. He says, I'll pay you back. He said, thank you, I trust you. I'll call Beseder. He gets home, his parents say, no, how is Shabbos? And they have a shmooze. And then his parents say to him, Oi, Adir Sheifela, the Kala came before Shabbos, and she left you a gift, it's next to your bed. He runs to his room, and he sees this box with fancy schmancy ribbons, and he undoes it, and Nebuch, the speed that he undoes it so doesn't justify the energy that went into making those knots. He didn't even realize the symmetry and the whatever. Anyway, but he opens the box, and inside there's a leather wallet, a new leather wallet. There's a note, which is colored, written to him. I'm sorry for telling you the reality. I don't mean to ruin your excitement of getting involved with giving your chasanim gifts, but he put her note aside. He said, that can wait. Let me see if there's money inside. And he opens the wallet, and incredibly, there's money inside, and it's exactly 388 shekel and 60 agurot. The Rabbi Shalom runs the world. Now, you're not sure if that's the end of the story. A little socially strange. If that would have happened to me, I would have been particularly concerned. Okay, that should be my fit. I wouldn't know what to do with such a story. Oy, listen to the magic. He picks up the note. And on the note it says, my dear Chassan, I'm looking forward in a Mitzvah Hashem, I daven that we should have parnasa and we should have everything we need. We should have plenty of everything. So I decided to give you a wallet which represents parnasa, and I decided to give you one of everything. And she had put inside one 200 shekel bill, 100 shekel bill, 150 shekel bill, 120 shekel bill, which is 370 shekel, one 10 shekel coin, one 5 shekel coin, one 2 shekel coin, one 1 shekel coin, half a shekel, and 10 agurot. And it was exactly 388.60. I think that's a genius of a Bas Yisrael. I think that's a brilliant, it's gone off again, if it makes a difference. That's the genius of a Bas Yisrael. But a gewaldige limit, and Hashem will give you what you need. Starts off as a ridiculous story. That's how many things in B'tachon start off. But when you see the full circle, we don't always get to see the full circle. And I'm sorry, for most of us the full circle we'll only get to see in Olam Haba. But when you do get opportunities in your lives, or if you're humble enough to learn from someone else's opportunity, you'll notice many, many opportunities of Hashem orchestrating and pulling the strings. The Ramban writes, in fact, it's associated with the famous Ramban in Parshas Bo, for those who know what I'm talking about, but the famous Ramban at the end of Parshas Bo, Hashem doesn't owe proofs to every generation. He did it once, Ayetzias Mitzrayim. From then onwards, we've got to trust. That's the aside of Noach. Es ho'elikim his halich Noach. The world of shame was the best blend of the chum and the office. Es ho'elikim his halich Noach. There's a very beautiful insight from a sefer called the Sifsei Tzedek, or Sifsei Tzadik, actually. And the Sifsei Tzadik writes in Parshas Balak, where the Torah writes, Matevu alecha Yaakov mishkanesecha Yisrael. Says Rashi, Matevu alecha Yaakov, how beautiful are your tents. That's referring to the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Mishkanesecha Yisrael is referring to after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Hashem says, I love your tents. During and after the Churban Beis HaMikdash. During the Beis HaMikdash and after the Beis HaMikdash. Asks the Sifsei Tzadik on that Rashi, which name represents the strength of Klal Yisrael, and which name represents the weaker expression of Klal Yisrael? Yisrael is a prince. Kisarisa im Elokim vatucha. I actually heard this week from the principal of Yeshiva of Greater Washington, Rabbi Zev Katz, Yedid Nefesh. One of the reasons I come recruiting is to make friendships with people like that, mamash. And he said to me, the Yesod of a Yid is ki sarisa melekim vatucha. The Yesod of the Yid is going through a challenge and not giving up. Going through a challenge and not giving up. Going through a challenge and not giving up. But Yisrael also means a prince. So why doesn't the Pasuk say, Matevu alecha Yisrael, when we have the Beis HaMikdash? Mishkanei Secha Yaakov, when we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. That's the lower representation. Says the Sifsei Tzaddik, Mosik mitvash. Mamash sweet like honey. Says the Sifsei Tzaddik, because yes, to bring a carbon is great. You know what's greater than bringing a carbon? You know what's greater than, and I'm going to use English intentionally, do you know what's greater than bringing a sacrifice? Is making a sacrifice. Living in Golus without a Beis HaMikdash and saying, I've got a temptation and that I'm going to devote to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's Mishkanei Secha Yisrael. That's a prince, that's a princess. A prince and a princess is someone who always remembers, I'm a child of a king. I'm a child of a king. And that's what we should be. Matevu alecha Yaakov Mishkanei Secha Yisrael, says the Sifsei Tzaddik, because become a Noach, become a Esalekim Salech Noach. It's not, I'm talking as if it's easy, it's not easy at all. Not for me, not for anyone. But that's why we're alive, and that's why we're mortal people. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Rabbi Bidman once added a very nice remez. Again, it's a Chassidish Vart. It's a Chassidish Vart, but we're in the heartbeat of Chassidus outside Eretz Yisrael. Listen to this Chassidish Vart. For those who are Litvish, I just said that. For those who are Chassidish, because it's a Chassidish Vart. Listen to this Chassidish Vart. I'm going to make another shakel, because I actually forgot. I had some more to hear. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam she'akol nihiyeh b'dvarim. Says the Ramelech Bidman. Actually, let me recorrect this. It wasn't Ramelech Bidman that I heard this for shame. It's also Chassid Shavart, but it was from Rabbi Ephraim Waxman. I'm sorry. Rabbi Ephraim Waxman once said a beautiful remez. When a person puts his hands on his eyes and he says Shema, which the Kalev Rebbe and Rav Hirsch both refer to as the Jewish national anthem, when they say Shema, say it slowly and listen to what you're saying, and listen to the sounds. Shh. So Rabbi Ephraim Waxman, a Yid should always live with shh. Stop the noise of questions in your head. You'll begin to understand. And eventually you'll say, What a remez. What a cute remez. Shh. The more we talk, the more we think, the less we understand. We understand much more from listening than from speaking. Shema means to listen. Shema means to listen. That's Esalekim Esalech Nach. What does Hashem want from me now? I don't know, ask a Rav. I don't know, ask a Navi. Whatever we have, we ask. I don't know, ask a friend. I don't have your Yetzaras, because I've got no interest in you doing an Avera. I have mine and you have yours. Which is why when you come to ask someone for advice, they're much less biased towards negative. Because I'm not biased in favor of your Averas. Number one, I want you to do mitzvahs. And number two, I don't have any benefit in that food which you might eat, which is tempting for you. I don't care. So what do I benefit from it? The Gemara says, Ein adam chayte v'lo loi. You don't do Averas if you don't benefit from them. I've got no benefit in you doing an Avera. Unless I'm in such a bad situation that it makes me feel less guilty by helping other people, and that's where you have Rishaim inspiring other people to be Rishaim. That's the world of Sodom, etc., etc. But that's the idea of Shabbos Kodesh. The idea of Shabbos Kodesh is quieten down. Just be. Just be. Not even a tzaddik. Be ahead of a tzaddik. Be a chassid. Be a lifnim mishur asadin. Which is, menucha is Noach, kedusha is Avraham. Eleikeinu v'elekei aviseinu, ritzevim nuchaseinu. Follow in the footsteps of Noach. And then kadeshenu b'mitzveisecha, you'll be elevated. We've said this many times, the definition of selflessness is Kedusha. As we mentioned before, dying al Kiddush Hashem. And that's what we should be on Shabbos. We should reach a level of, it doesn't matter if business is going to fail because I keep Shabbos. By definition, that means it's not failing. It will fail if I do well by not keeping Shabbos, even though my bank account's growing. I think the way to put it in an English phrase is the best way for me to recharge is to remind myself who's in charge. The best way for me to recharge which is Shabbos, is to remind myself who's in charge. So I want to end by sharing with you 2 stories and a going home gift. Story number 1. Reb Simcha Bunim of Pshischa had a Talmud who was a sad sort of individual. He couldn't take a joke, but also he was a negative sort of character, and people didn't like hanging around him, and people were frustrated. Every time he was there, it just made people depressed and sad. But one day he decided, I want to go to the Rebbe for Shabbos. He takes a horse and cart, he pays the money, and as he's traveling towards the Rebbe for Shabbos, Heilige Shabbos, Nebuch, the wheels of the cart get caught in the mud, and he can't make it for Shabbos, and he realizes, there's no way I can do it. So he stops in a nearby community. He has a nice Shabbos, but nowhere near his dream. As soon as Shabbos was over, he hires another cart, another whatever it was, horse and cart, and he makes his way to the Rebbe, and he gets there during Melava Malka. He gets to Reb Simcha Bunim during Melava Malka. The Rebbe says, Shalom Aleichem. Why didn't you come for Shabbos if you came anyway? You don't live so near. And he cried, and he said the story. And the Rebbe said, let me talk to you afterwards. He talked to the Rebbe afterwards, and the Rebbe says, maybe it's time for you to understand. He says, what, Rebbe? People find, and I notice, that you're not happy. You're not happy. You're quite a sad person. There's so much more to be happy about in your life than to be sad about. Maybe Shabbos is talking to you. He says, Rebbe, what do you mean? He says, Shabbos is very hospitable. If Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos, we move the Haftarah from Shabbos Haftarah to Rosh Chodesh Haftarah, because Shabbos says, you're welcome. If Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, we don't only move the Haftarah, we also move the Kriyas Haftarah, and even the Musaf davening. Shabbos, you're welcome. Shabbos says to Yom Tov, please be my guest. If Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, we don't only move the laning and the davening, we even move the Einik Shabbos and the food of Shabbos. But if Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, Shabbos says Adkan. I'm going to be hospitable, but not to sadness. And maybe Shabbos is talking to you. I think the natural result, I might have mentioned this earlier, I'm just too tired to remember. I think the natural result of Menucha is Simcha. The natural result of, I can just be, and Hashem's going to take care of everything. The result of that, I think we did say this before, is the world of Simcha. Menucha v'Simcha. But it's only for the Yid. It's unique for us. We can be children of Avraham Avinu because we are. We can even choose to be a child of Avraham Avinu if one's a ger or geras, and that's not just cute chizuk. It's a genetic shift, says the Chasam Sofer. The Chasam Sofer says that someone who's a ger has a genetic shift. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. Is it Kabbalistic? Is it physical? I have no idea. Is there something in the DNA from Avraham Avinu which changes? By going to mikveh, don't talk to me about things which are too esoteric. I'm struggling enough to keep my feet on the ground before we go into deeper levels. But says Reb Simcha Bunim, maybe Shabbos is telling you it's time to be a bit more happy. And I'm saying to you that the way to do that is Menucha. The way to do that is Menucha. It's actually interesting. I was here and I was discussing this with some people, and they said to me, there's actually non-Jewish people in America who have started a trend of keeping Shabbos. And they realize how much you can benefit from that. Now again, a guy shouldn't do it. And a guy who does it is Chayav Misa. But at the same time, the concept is so precious. Again, I'm not saying they keep Shabbos completely, but even just putting your phone aside for 24 hours of a week, suddenly you can breathe a bit without that rush and noise and vibration of your brain, forget your pocket. So story number 1. Story number 2. What a story and then a gift. In 1966, there was a Yid who lived around the corner here. His name was Sam Zeitlin. Sam Zeitlin was a not yet religious Yid as he grew up here in Borough Park, Brooklyn. And he actually had a hobby, and he became a national participant in the national cycling team of the United States of America. He was so good, he won medals. But in 1967, he ran the race, or he rode the race of the Grand Prix, and he came in first place. And they disqualified him because he was a Jew. What was their excuse? As he got to the finishing line, literally split seconds from that ribbon, he raised his hands in excitement, yeah! And they said, you should know that's one of the laws in cycling. If you take your hands off the handlebars, you're putting the spectators at risk. So we're disqualifying you from the award. That was a law in cycling, which was never put into practice until 1967, and actually never since. And he felt the noose of anti-Semitism tightening in America. And eventually he decided, I can't continue like this, and he moved to Tel Aviv. He tried other countries, he tried Mexico, he tried a variety of places, and eventually he settled in Tel Aviv. He joined the cycling team of Hapoel Tel Aviv, which is one of the successful teams in Eretz Israel, or in Israel. And he started training for the Olympics. At the same time, he went to the Kosel for his first time. This is early 1970s. And he gets to the Kosel and he says, I didn't even know what to do there, this wall, what am I meant to do? And he sees two people standing near him. So he stands there for a minute, and he just says Shema Yisrael, it was the only sentence he knew. And then he goes over to these two Yidden, one was called David, one was called Chaim Goldberg from Chicago. Cousins of Goldberg from Borough Park. But he goes up to them, he said, what am I meant to do when I get to the Kosel? And they said, please, Rabbi, you've never been here before. And he said, no. He said, let us help you. And they have a schmooze with him. They put their arms on his shoulders, I don't know physically, but definitely emotionally. And they say, let us take you on that journey. And they invite him to make contact with a Yid who lived in Ezra's Torah in Yerushalayim. His name was Rav Weinberger. Rav Weinberger invites him to the Shabbos meal, and he becomes a Ben Bias, and he teaches them songs. And he starts singing the Neginas. Menucha V'Simcha is one of them, and Ki Yashmar HaShabbos of Rav Weinberger. Eventually he says, you've got to graduate. You've got to increase your journey. And he puts him in touch with Rav Noach Weinberg, who at the time had just opened a yeshiva in Petach Tikva, which became the trailblazer for the Eish HaTorah movement, or the Eish HaTorah yeshiva. And he goes to this yeshiva in Bnei Brak. He was Talmid number 5 of Rav Weinberg. Talmid number 5 of Rav Weinberg. I think I wrote down the name of the yeshiva. The yeshiva is Mogen Avraham. Mogen Avraham yeshiva was the forerunner of Eish HaTorah. Rav Weinberg, very cleverly, he said to him, every morning I want you to learn for a few hours. In the afternoon I want you to go cycling. Don't lose your passions to Torah, because then you'll, number one, lose your health, perhaps, but more importantly, you'll lose your passion for Torah. So every day he would go cycling along the Yarkon, Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Bnei Brak, and he would hum the song, Ki Yashmar HaShabbos Kel Yishmereini. Ki Yashmar HaShabbos Kel Yishmereini. Fast forward, 1972. Fast forward, 1972. And it's the Olympic Games. Every few years, the Olympics. And they have trials. Who's going to represent Israel in the cycling team? And they say, Sam, you've got to join. Without you, there's no chance. He says, of course, what do you mean? Of course I'll be there. He checks his calendar. It was on Shabbos. The trials were on Shabbos. He says, are you joking? This is Eretz Yisrael. I didn't come here for nothing from anti-Semitism. And they said, we're sorry, policies are policies, we can't. He says, you know and I know, you're not winning a medal in cycling without me. And they say, oh, we're sorry, policies are policies. He walked away so frustrated. And he gets back to Yeshiva and he says, but Baruch Hashem. And then he says, actually, maybe I should do it. Is it Nisa the Reis to say? What's the Isurim? And his Rebbe says, please, this is your Nisayon. He knew if he would win a medal, he'd go down in world history. As a Jew from Israel, a team of cycling, gewaldig. And he said no. And frightfully, 1972, the Munich Games in Germany, there was a group of Palestinians who came in to what we call Olympic Village, and they killed 2 Yidden. They took hostage 5 in a helicopter. The Germans chased after them, the German police, and there was a shootout, and tragically the helicopter literally burst into a ball of flames, and all 5 Olympic medalists were killed. Tragedy. Motzei Shabbos, Sam, who's now Simcha, hears the story, and he gets the goosebumps through him of Ki Yashmar HaShabbos Kel Yishmereini. Ki Yashmar HaShabbos Kel Yishmereini. Is it a tragedy, those 7 people who were killed? 100%. We don't know why Hashem orchestrated that, but we might know more why Hashem orchestrated his survival. He made a commitment to Menucha V'Simcha Ola Yehudim. So what's the gift I'd like to end with? We spoke about why would we talk about Shabbos to people who keep it. Shalom Shvadran, Chazon Ish said, let's talk about Emunah in Chutz La'aretz. That's what we need in an environment which is trending in the opposite direction, we discussed the Sfas Emes after saying how Shabbos, Pesach, Sukkot, etc., all the Yom Tovim is just for the Eid. And we discussed the Sfas Emes taking us on a journey through the world of Noach, understanding Noach, Shem, Chom, and Yafes, Tzadik, Tomim, but Esarikim and Salich Noach. And that's the aside of Shabbos Kodesh. We added some stories, we added Lech Lecha, 100 brachas a day remind us, just be with Hashem. Split seconds, 10 seconds, 100 times. That's a huge amount of time. That's a huge amount of time. You know what 1,000 seconds is? 1,000 seconds. 100 times a day, Lech Lecha, just keep walking. Just be in the journey of Hashem. But we said that's the idea of Shabbos Kodesh. And once you've done Menucha properly, you can elevate yourself to Kedusha. That world of Hariyat Mukudeshes, that world of Kedusha, which means I'm completely selfless. It's not about me, it's about you. The way we can recharge, we said, is to remind ourselves who's in charge. That's Shabbos. But what I'd like to end with is a gift which I've been sharing in the Shiurim this year. And I want it to be like this. Whether you light Shabbos candles, if you're married, or you still light because it's your minhag, or you see Shabbos candles. Let's all try, b'siyata d'shmaya. Up until Chanukah, you want to do it beyond? Gewaldig. Chazal tell us, looking at Shabbos candles heals the things that you've seen during the week which perhaps you shouldn't. Sometimes it's intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. That's the power of Shabbos candles. That's the power of Shabbos candles. Same with Chanukah candles, which is coming up. Just sit and look at them. But what I'm asking, I'm pleading, if you want, join me on a journey. I'll do it after shul. When I come home, just stand and look at the candles for 2 to 5 minutes, not more. Sometimes when we do more, it's less. 2 to 5 minutes. And I want you to think of two things. Number one, I want to stop. I want to just be. Even if it's for 2 minutes on Shabbos. Dayenu. But let's try to do that the whole Shabbos, but menucha. And think of the word lechu, from lechu naranan al Hashem. That we're walking, which means there's always movement, we keep on progressing. If over time you don't see progress, come back for Shana Beis Gimel Dalet, etc. But there's always process and progress that we need to be doing. But lechu, that was the motto on the yeshiva of Chachmei Lublin, lechu bonim shimuli. That was Sarah Schneer's motto, which is Beis Yaakov lechu v'nelcha. And those are the words said to Avraham Avinu, lech lecha. And then I'd love if we can try. It's a suggestion. This is mamash a suggestion. You don't have to do this, but I think you should. I think it'll be beautiful. If a few hundred people do such a thing, we're making a huge impact on the world. One of my 150 favorite Pirkei Tehillim is Tehillim Chav Gimel. It's Tehillim Chav Gimel. It's gone blank again. It's Tehillim Chav Gimel. David HaMelech writes, and just listen carefully and we'll finish. Mizmar LeDavid. What a precious parak. Hashem roi lo yachzar. Hashem is my shepherd. I've got nothing to worry about. The shepherd, the ultimate shepherd, knows where to take his sheep to graze. Don't worry about it. And if he's not taking you to graze, it's because he wants you to generate that kayach of control until he's ready to take you. If you don't realize that you're grazing in a meadow, that's not because you're not, it's because we don't realize. Take me on journeys, a magal is a circle. Sometimes I think I'm spiraling out of control. Let me realize that those spirals can be part of magalei tzedek we spoke about before. And gam ki elech begitz al movas. Even when we're going through nisyonos, le'irara, Avraham Avinu, ata imadi. Ata imadi. Hashem's with me. You might not feel it. He's metaphysical. But he's everywhere. I've told you this in school before. One of my greatest fears was Uncle Moshe, coming back to where we started. And when he taught us Hashem is here, Hashem is there, up, down, right, left, and all around, I was frightened. That means wherever I go, there's someone next to me. Why can't I see him? Who is this? And my hands were within the limits of my mattress, and if they went over, maybe that hand is going to come out from underneath. And I don't want to be in a room where no one's there and think maybe someone's there. That's frightening. And I told you once, I think, that I once said to my mother, Hashem's everywhere. Yeah, Shefila, Hashem's everywhere. What, even between my hands? Yeah. And I cut my hands. I said, I just banged Hashem. From a child's perspective, that's scary. But Atayimadi, from an adult perspective, I was talking to my wife before, I was talking to the kids before. We can be miles away and feel close. That's Atay Madi. You can be miles away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very close. Atay Madi. Because Shiftecha Mishantecha, when you go through those hittings in life, when you realize who's holding the end of the stick, it's Shiftecha. And it's also Mishantecha, you're the one who's supporting me. But when you know it's a true loving father who's smacking, the smack doesn't hurt. Actually, the smack is sweet. It shakes you up and it makes you cry, but it doesn't hurt your nefesh. That's Shabbos Kodesh. Shiftecha mishantecha himi enachamoni and tarich lefanei sha'ai. At risk of getting emotional, when I was in Poland a number of years ago with a cousin of mine, Rabbi David Silken, we got to the end, it was his first time in Poland. And he said to me, Moshe, do you know what I think is the best revenge for Hitler? I said, what's the best revenge for Hitler? He said, we should make a cage. Put Hitler inside, Heinrich Himmler inside, Eichmann inside, Dr. Mengele inside, v'chule, v'chule. And just slowly lower it down into the Meir Beis HaMedrash. Just let it hover in the seminaries of Klal Yisrael. Let it hover in a place like this. I can't tell you what it means. I mean this believe shalem. It is worth teaching for years just to stand here and see, Matev Olech Yaakov. Oy, Hitler. Tarech lefonai shulchan. We're going to lay tables and enjoy. Neged serira in front of our enemies. This is a table in front of our enemies. This is the Ziskait of Klal Yisrael. Mamash. I have conversations with some of you. We're all going through challenges. But this is the Ziskait of Klal Yisrael. Mamash, that we want to hear a share on a Wednesday night. Just bring us back to the memories of seminary. Keep those sparks on fire. Keep those sparks on fire. I can't tell you the nachas ruach that you're giving, not to me, to my wife, to the principals, but to the Rabbeinu Shalom. When you see Bnei Yisrael years afterwards, your parents invested well in your chinuch, your schools invested well in your chinuch, and then they elevated that to the world of seminary. This is the result. This is a tarech lefonai. If only Hitler was hanging here. If only he would see. That's the sweetest revenge. The definition of Ziz. B'tarech lefonai shulchan neged tzera. Dishant of Hashem and Reishi, Kaisi Revaya. Always hold those cups of Mitzvah Hashem in your lives of Kaisi Shois Esa. Raise the cups to say L'chaim in your own personal lives. Mitzvah Hashem. Mitzvah Hashem. But you should always feel, each and every one of you, V'shavti b'veis Hashem la'erech yamim. That your lives represent living in the house of Hashem. It could be in a shul like this. And it could be in the beauty of your own kitchens, the beauty of looking after a child, the beauty of looking after someone else's child, or the beauty of just being part of a community which you're not just taking, but you're also giving. V'shavti b'veis Hashem la'erech yamim. You should be zeichet arichas yamim. Each and every one of you. Each and every one of you. It's a personal touch. Each and every one of you who are here. But we should be zeicha mit Hashem to keep many, many Shabbosim. But if only we can look at those candles for 2 to 5 minutes and just be. And just say, L'chu. I'm here to walk in the footsteps of Rameir Shapiro, who stood here. You're here to walk in the footsteps of Sarah Schneider, Beis Yaakov L'chu V'neilcha. And we're all here. We're all here to go on that derech of Es ha'elikim hishalech neach. Thank you for being here. Have a good Chodesh and a good Chanukah and Besuras Tevis.